Welcome to My Business Matters, the Michigan Chamber podcast.
Hi there, I'm Wendy Block, Senior Vice President of Business Advocacy for the Michigan Chamber and today's podcast host. We're going to take a sneak peek at one of our signature events for this year, the 2025 Chamber Day, in a session that is always a hit. It's about pundits and pollsters, policy and politics, and what the 2025 landscape looks like and what to watch in the upcoming pivotal 2025 election cycle. A warm welcome to two of these dynamic panelists who will help us unpack this today and during Chamber Day, which is next month. Our first guest is Alexis Wiley, founder and CEO of Moment Strategies, who has worn some key past election roles and media hats. And Andrea Bitely, founder and principal of Bitely Communications, also with several front row election experiences to fuel her insights. We've got a lot to cover today, so we're going to get going. So, Alexis, I would like to start with you. Could you give us a little bit of your background, some quick highlights about that, and how you got involved in politics and policy?
Yeah, well, again, thank you so much for inviting me to be on, and I'm super excited about the event coming up. So, really, for me, my background is that I was a journalist. Spent about 10 years in news, moving markets. Started my career in Louisiana, then moved to Columbus, Ohio, and then to Detroit.
Wow!
And while I've always been interested and had like an understanding of politics and interest in government, as a reporter, you have to be objective, right? Mm-hmm. So I was really just an observer. And then after, I was at Fox 2 for 3.5 years, I had a call from Mayor Duggan, and he asked if I wanted to join his administration as spokesperson, and I quickly became chief of staff after joining the team. I did that for almost 7 years, and I felt like this was an opportunity to get involved and try to see, as a reporter, you spend a lot of time talking about what everybody should be doing or could be doing better. Mm-hmm. And I was considering all the time that I've spent criticizing all the things that needed to be done, maybe I could see if I could do it myself. And I learned so much in that time, and really learned a lot about what it takes to actually get things done, the coalitions that need to be built, all of the different levers that need to be pulled, and how you can get things done at the end of the day with the only goal being improving the lives of people. Mm-hmm. And that's been an awesome experience. My firm really focuses mostly on strategic communications. I would say the political end of things that we do is actually a small part of what we do. But I think in this in this current landscape climate, I think that really being able to communicate well is really important. So happy to play the role that we're playing now, supporting, as you know, Mayor Duggan and his really historic run for governor. So very excited about that. And I think this is going to be a really fun year and some change as we go into this next election.
Yeah, that's awesome. Andrea, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in all of this. It's kind of often a winding path, as Alexis kind of showed.
I'm actually one of those weirdos who has always been involved in politics. I was on my first political campaign before I could drive.
Wow.
And I learned how to drive stick shift in a 4th of July parade many, many years ago. My career has taken me from growing up here in the Lansing area over to Kalamazoo, go Broncos, out to Washington, D.C., where I worked for the United States Chamber of Commerce and Politico, and then back here to Michigan, where I had the opportunity to work for former Attorney General Bill Schuette. I now run my own public relations firm, and similar to Alexis, strategic communications is the thing of the moment. We're all understanding what the new federal government's rules and regulations are, making sure that our clients are in compliance with everything that's going on, which is changing on a daily basis, and helping people who are in crisis. There's a lot of maneuvering that comes with that, and understanding what goes on in politics is really key to advising a client in this current climate.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about just today's political and policy landscape. I think you both have been watching this. You've been involved in it. How would you describe in one or two words or as a headline about where we are today, kind of this landscape? And it could either have a policy or a political lens to it. Andrea, you want to start? You want to try?
Sure. I think chaos is the word du jour. The Trump administration has been in office for about 100 days, and we've seen a lot of change, rapid change. But more locally here in Michigan, we're already seeing a lot of folks jumping in the race for 2028, which we've got a lot of openings. We've got our Senate seat. We've got our gubernatorial race. Attorney General, Secretary of State, the entire House is up. The Senate has seats that will be up. We've got a lot going on. So chaos, primaries coming up, and chaos in Washington is really having a big impact on what goes on here in Michigan.
Alexis, you want to try to jump in here?
Yeah, chaos actually did come to my mind as well. But I might take the headline route and just say, I think an opportunity for disruption, right?
Okay.
An opportunity to disrupt the system that I think every day we are all being presented with more and more evidence that the current system is not working, right? It's not working for regular working people. A lot of ways it doesn't work for business people. And we got to figure out a way to change that. And I feel like something happened in like the cosmos when 2020 hit, right? And I feel like it created, even think about my own life. I chose, instead of doing going to work somewhere else, I chose to start my own firm, right? I think and a lot of people are making these life choices right now. And I just think that there was something about that showed us that business as usual is not working for us. And every single day we get more proof of that. So that's why I would say opportunity for disruption, because that I think this is a time for people to be creative. It's time for people to shake things up and to figure out what's actually going to improve lives and deliver for the people.
Yeah. So this idea, I guess, of disruption or even just this idea of chaos, right? Both kind of leads me to my next question. We have kind of been on this political roller coaster in Michigan for a number of years here, right? We went from years of being kind of a purple state to an all blue state. Now we're back to a purple state. And so right now we're kind of purple. We've got a Republican-controlled Michigan House, a Democratic Michigan Senate, a Democratic governor. And I think a lot of people are just trying to figure out how this works, right? And how are we going to find ways to get things done? And when I think about the start of this year, leaders came together, I think, encouragingly to fix the minimum wage and earned sick time acts. Not a ton has happened in a bipartisan way since then. Do you think that we should expect gridlock for the remainder of this legislative cycle in Michigan? Or do we think that people have kind of found a path and felt good about this idea of bipartisanship and working together? What are your kind of estimations on that of kind of now what?
Absolutely. I think we're seeing a really interesting path with this bipartisan legislature governor combination. Speaker Hall has embraced working with folks that are not necessarily Republicans. We've seen his friendship. That's the only word I can come up with to describe it, with Governor Whitmer. Mm-hmm. We've seen him sitting alongside Mayor Duggan in Detroit talking about crime. With the governor, it's been talking about roads. We did see the governor and Speaker Hall in the White House lobbying for Michigan. We saw them talking about Selfridge. We saw them talking about benefits for folks up north who have been really hit by this ice storm really badly. We're not seeing Majority Leader Brinks around as much, partially probably because of the outstanding lawsuit between the House and the Senate. But we are really seeing work and collaborative work between the governor and the speaker. And yes, ESTA is the only thing that has truly moved at this point. But we're seeing them talk about roads. We're seeing them talk about classroom sizes. We're really seeing a bipartisan spirit come out on both the governor's part and the speaker's part. And I really believe that this, bipartisan work will give us better legislation in the end. When you have one party that's controlling everything, you're going to get one-sided legislation. When you've got a governor who's a Democrat and a speaker who's a Republican, you're going to work to have much better public policy than if it's just one party in control of everything.
And that might have longevity too, right? As
Real
we've
longevity.
seen the flip-flopping or back and forth whiplash that's been going on when there is just one party in control. Alexis, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that? Knowing that you're not necessarily in Lansing every day, as Andrea and I are.
No, 100%. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think for me, what Governor Whitmer has done in terms of showing real leadership, like she literally, she put her politics aside when she went to the White House to advocate for money for Northern Michigan, who is still trying to find their way through that terrible ice storm, to advocate for funding that we need to bring in big companies that are going to create good paying jobs. She didn't care about the politics of it. And she, I think the fact that she's getting blasted by some people for it is so upsetting to me, because I'm like, she did exactly what we want our elected officials to do, right? I elect you to represent me, regardless of what party you come from. I want you to represent me. And I think she has demonstrated that and is demonstrating that. And I agree that willingness to work with the other side with an idea of let's deliver for people is really, really good. And it's going to lead to smart legislation. It's going to lead to jobs, and it's going to lead to good work. And I think one thing I do think is that we've got to do a better job of supporting leaders who do that and not allowing the chattering class to say, oh, well, you went to the White House and found yourself in a photo op and, we're uncomfortable in it. You put the folder up, all that kind of stuff, and making that the story.
Yeah.
The real story is that she put all of that at risk, all the party politics at risk to make sure that she delivered for people. And that's the thing that I think we all need to actually be a little more full-throated in our support for things like that.
Yeah, that's interesting because the story really has become the folder and, kind of hiding from the cameras. And I'm sure, kind of as a communications professional, you might have done, if you were there with her, like a adult, situation, like, no, don't do that, because that the minute that happens.
I would have figured out how to jump in front of her or something.
Same here.
I would have made my way into that room to make sure that did not happen. But at the same time, I'm like, if you don't know what's going, you think you're going in for a meeting, you walk in and it's a gaggle of reporters, they're signing legislation that you don't align with, you're totally shocked in that moment. I get how it happened. I just am but all the people who are I saw some national story that said something like, this is the kind of thing that ends, careers and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, ew, if something like that ends a career, then we got a bigger problem here.
Sure.
Right? Because if anything, it should show that you got a leader who's actually willing to get out there and put politics at risk to deliver for people. He's the president of the United States.
Yeah, which I think was the political analysis, right? The risk was, the reward was bigger than the risk in the situation of deciding to accept the invitation. So I think you make a really good point there. Yeah. Let's talk about the upcoming gubernatorial election and the U.S. Senate race. And probably to a lesser extent, let's talk a little bit about the battle for control of the legislature. All of this is going to be pivotal to shaping the future of Michigan's political landscape, its policy landscape, its economic landscape. What are your thoughts? And Alexis, I know you're probably a little more biased here than Andrea, but what are your thoughts on the candidates who've announced so far? And do you have any preliminary predictions on kind of who's doing it right, who's doing it wrong? Who do you think is really the strong horse at this point, especially when we start talking about primaries?
I think there's three leading candidates. Mayor Duggan is obviously a bit of a wild card, but he won on a write-in ballot in Detroit, which is an incredible feat. Secretary of State Benson is obviously the leading candidate for the Democrats. And right now I would say that John James is the leading candidate for Republicans. Now, Duggan is his own race for the independent bid, but the Benson James slots, that's not a given. We could see what happened with Governor Snyder, where a guy out of left field came in and won a primary. I'm not convinced that we have all the candidates in the race. So saying that this is a done deal for the gubernatorial race, I don't believe it. We saw Abdul Al-Sayed jump in today for the U.S. Senate race. We have a lot of candidates that are all over the place jumping in. And we have a lot of folks that have run before who did not win, which makes me wonder, is there a retread issue with our politics here in Michigan? Why aren't more people jumping in? The public is looking for a fresh perspective, a new perspective, but we're getting a lot of candidates that we already know. So
that is a good point. Yeah.
We'll see what the public wants.
Right.
When it comes to, more than a year from now, when we're in the ballot booth voting on those gubernatorial candidates and those Senate candidates.
Yeah. Alexis, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you rightfully predicted this. I mean, but really, I could not be more excited about what Mayor Duggan is doing right now, of really saying, we need to come together and actually find a pathway that leads to getting things done, right? We need to make sure that we've got more and more people are moving away from identifying with parties, right? Mm-hmm. And if there ever was a moment for an independent candidate who has a proven track record of fundraising, a proven track record of actually delivering for people and showing what government can do, it's Mayor Duggan. And, I think the coolest thing about, and I am on the campaign, so that's being fully transparent on that. But I think one of the coolest things that I get a chance to see is going to events and in communities where people don't even really know him, and to see how they respond, to see how more and more people are showing up at these events who want to talk about changing the system and know it's not working for people, right? They know that there's a reason. Why is it that our kids are still falling behind, right? Why is it we can't come together? And I think that that's something that he's really tapping into something that is really, really big, and I believe that he is going to be successful. So I'm excited about that as a real game changer for Michigan.
Now, I'm not on Mayor Duggan's gubernatorial campaign, but I've had the opportunity to observe when he is at an event. He was at the Lansing the Lansing Economic Club a few months back, and there was a line to meet the mayor of Detroit. He gave his presentation. He gave a really compelling speech, a really, something that made us think about what he has done in his time in public service, whether it be his time with the hospital system, his time as mayor. It's been a really profound change. And the Lansing business community lined up to shake his hand and give him their business cards. That was a fascinating moment to watch. And it seems like Duggan is really clicking with folks who are a little disenchanted with the existing party system and the business community. We've seen people extremely interested in what the mayor has to say.
What do we think are the issues, right? I mean, in my mind, it's kind of it's the economy, stupid. But does it stop there? What? We've seen such a range of issues over the last election. I feel like last cycle, Democrats really tried to bottle the enthusiasm on the abortion issue.
That didn't work.
That didn't really work. So I think, they're kind of forced to move on. What other issues do we think are going to define beyond the economy, high prices, inflation, et cetera?
Beyond that? Yeah. I don't know what is beyond that. I mean, that's what it comes 100%. Down to.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like
more.
Education.
But that comes down to money, too. I mean, education dollars are tax dollars.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we have I totally
more...
agree. I think...
Go ahead, Alexis.
No, you go on. You go on.
I mean, if it comes down to it, if we're paying more for everyday goods, people are going to do less shopping, and then there's going to be less money in the economy, putting less money into taxes. And the economy always comes back. Democrats tried so hard in the last cycle to pull people away from having that conversation, but it always came back to that. always came back to the economy.
I agree that the economy is, I think people are at a breaking point. I think people are being so stretched because it's not like everyone wants more from you, but you're not getting a raise. Like you don't feel like your life is getting better and that you've got more resources to pay for these things. You just feel like you're getting pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled. And I think that's really why when I say like disruption, right? People are desperate for things to change and be different. I mean, I think to be completely honest, I think the last election was all about people saying, we need a path. And even if it means I got to break the system, I'm willing to break the system if it means that things change. And maybe I come out a little better than I've been so far, right?
Yeah.
And I think anybody who believes that this is about anything other than economics is silly.
Yeah.
It's going to be whoever can prove I can make your dollar go farther, and I can put a little bit more in your pocket. That's who's going to win these elections. And honestly, that's who should be winning these elections.
Right. The question is who believes who, right? That they actually have a plan.
The problem is not discriminating between whether you're a Democrat or Republican or an independent. It is hitting every single one of us. And we should be demanding that whoever we elect addresses that and delivers on it.
Mm. All right. So our time is kind of coming to a close. I'd love to hear one big thing that you're watching for the remainder of this year or going into the next election cycle. Go. I don't care who starts.
One thing I'm definitely watching is obviously the economy, but also what our jobs numbers are like. Here in Michigan, we are so dependent on the auto industry, but that's a national ripple. You know, there's the saying that we've all heard, you know, nationally, people get a cold, but Michigan gets the flu when it comes to economic indicators. We're already seeing retail slow down. We're seeing OEMs close their doors. We're seeing warn notices potentially out there because we can't control what the guy in the Oval Office is doing. So keeping an eye on those jobs numbers is something that I'm perpetually doing.
Yeah, us too. How about you, Alexa?
100%. I would say, really, what's the real impact of these tariffs going to be? Because, we've not felt it yet. But when it starts to trickle down, if the impact is not that more companies say they're moving to Michigan and they're going to start hiring and there's construction jobs and all that kind of stuff. If that's not it, I fully believe the people who once supported President Trump are going to flip. Because at the end of the day, we are reaching a breaking point when it comes to people's pocketbooks. Mm.
Well, all really great insight. And unfortunately, our time is up today. A very special thank you to Alexis and Andrea for sharing their insights and perspectives about policy and politics in 2025 and next year's election cycle. To all of you, thanks for listening. Please get involved and make your voices heard and consider joining us for Chamber Day 2025. Tune in to our next episode and subscribe or like our podcast for easy notifications. Until then.